The orbital station hung silently in the cold, dark space above a dying moon. Its metal walls were smooth and gray, and the faint hum of machines filled every corner. Inside one of its small, windowless rooms, a cage stood alone. In that cage sat Kale, the white fox. Kale was not an ordinary fox. His fur was pure white and soft like fresh snow. His eyes were sharp, golden, and full of deep emotion. But most of all, Kale was different because he was part human and part Valari, a rare and feared species once thought to be extinct. The Valari were known across many star systems as fierce warriors. They were born with white fur and quick reflexes. Most people believed Valari had no feelings and could not be loved. Kyle had heard the whispers, the cruel words spoken behind his back by scientists and guards who passed his cage. They said things like, danger, monster, and unlovable. The worst was when they said, a white fox cannot be loved. Those words made him shrink inside, but deep down, Kyle wanted something more. He wanted to prove they were wrong. He sat quietly watching the small room with careful eyes. The station was cold and lonely. The scientists came only to observe him and take notes. They poked at him with questions and machines, but none of them tried to understand him. Kale wished for freedom, for kindness, and maybe even friendship. But no one gave him that. The station had been orbiting the dead moon for years, far from any world where anyone would hear Kale's silent cries. His cage was the only home he knew, but it was not a home at all. The walls were cold metal, and the air smelled of machines and oil. Kale often thought about the stories the Valari used to tell. Stories of forests, rivers, and bright stars, things he had never seen. His life was full of walls and steel. One day, the usual dull routine changed suddenly. The station's alarms blared loud and shrill. Red lights flashed in the hallways. The scientists rushed around in panic, shouting orders and trying to hide important data. Kale's ears twitched at the noise. He felt the station shake as something big struck its hull. The station was under attack. Outside, a group of pirates had come without warning. They wanted to steal valuable technology and take prisoners to sell as slaves. The pirates were ruthless and fast. They smashed doors, fired weapons, and spread fear through the station like wildfire. Kale watched the chaos with wide eyes. For the first time, the guards seemed unsure. They left doors unlocked in their rush to escape or fight. In the confusion, Kale saw his chance. He moved quickly inside his cage, testing the lock with his hands. It was old but strong. His claws and clever fingers worked as the pirates drew closer. Finally, the lock clicked open. The door swung free. Kale stepped out, his heart pounding in his chest. He was free. Kale did not know where to run. The station was full of danger, but he remembered the escape routes the scientists had talked about. He ran through cold, empty hallways, slipping past alarms and pirates who shouted in anger when they saw him. Near the main docking bay, Kale paused and looked up. Through the huge window, he saw a ship arriving, a rescue ship. It was a human ship called the Dauntless. The Dauntless was known for its bravery and kindness, often helping people in danger across many star systems. The pirates had not expected help so quickly. The Dauntless fired warning shots and the pirates hurried to escape. Kale's chance was coming. Captain Raya Chen stood on the bridge of the Dauntless watching the station closely. She was a strong woman with sharp eyes and a heart that refused to give up on anyone. When she saw Kale's white fur moving in the shadows, she felt something inside her change. Many in the galaxy believed Kale was dangerous because of his species. But Captain Chen did not see a monster. She saw fear and hope mixed together. She knew that Kale might be misunderstood. Against the orders from the Concorde and her own crew, Captain Chen made a decision. She ordered the crew to open the airlock for Kale. The doors hissed open and Kale hesitated for a moment before stepping inside the warmth of the ship. The crew was shocked. Some of them whispered about dangers and risks. But Captain Chen stood firm. "We save lives here," she said, "no matter who they are." Kyle felt the warmth of the ship and the curious eyes of the crew. He was scared but also relieved. No one had ever done this for him before. For the first time in his life, Kale felt a small spark of hope. On board the Dauntless, Kale was given a small room to rest. It was not a cage but a place with a soft bed and clean air. The crew watched him closely, but some tried to smile or speak kindly. Kale learned to trust these small signs of friendship. Captain Chen visited Kale often. She asked him questions not as a scientist or a prisoner, but as someone who wanted to understand. Kale tried to answer. He told her about the silence of the station, about the cold loneliness, and about the fear of never being loved. Captain Chen listened without judgment. She shared stories of Earth and the stars, of people who fought for justice and kindness. She told Kale that love was not about species or appearances, but about courage and heart. Kale wanted to believe her. He wanted to believe that maybe he could be more than a legend of fear. Days passed. The Dauntless moved away from the dying moon and the pirates. Kale learned to walk on the ship's smooth floors, to use the controls for simple tasks, and to understand the crew's strange but friendly ways. He found joy in small things: a warm meal, the laughter of children visiting the ship at a station, the sound of music in the halls. Kale's golden eyes grew brighter with each passing day. But Kale also knew the danger was not gone. The Conquered of Species, a powerful group that governed many worlds, still wanted him captured. They sent messages demanding his return, calling him a threat. Captain Chen refused. She declared Kale under her protection, willing to face any consequences. She believed that Kale's story was not one of fear, but of hope. As the Dauntless continued its journey through the stars, Kale stood by the window, watching the endless black space dotted with bright stars. For the first time, he did not feel alone. He felt that maybe, just maybe, he could find a place where he belonged. The White Fox was free. And he was ready to show the galaxy that love could grow even in the coldest and darkest places. The Dauntless glided through space, a silver streak against the deep black of the stars. Inside, the hum of engines mixed with the soft chatter of the crew. Life moved in a steady rhythm on the ship, but Kale felt his own heart beating faster. He was no longer a prisoner. He was free, but freedom felt strange and new, like stepping into a world that did not quite know what to do with him. Kale walked down the narrow corridors, his white fur glowing softly under the ship's lights. The crew stared as he passed, some curious, some wary. Kale could feel their eyes on him, filled with questions and doubts. The stories about the white-furred Valari spread fast, and most were not kind. Many believed that Kale's kind was cold and dangerous, incapable of feeling kindness or love. Kale did not know how to change those thoughts. He only knew he wanted to try. Captain Raya Chen stood in the ship's command center watching the stars ahead. She was a woman who had faced many battles both in space and in her heart. She believed that every being deserved a chance to be understood. For her, Kale was not a legend or a weapon. He was a living being with hopes and fears like any other. "We need to keep moving," she told her first officer. "But Kale needs time. The crew needs time. We cannot rush this." The first officer nodded, but there was worry in his eyes. The Conquered's warnings were clear. Harboring Kale was against the law. If they were caught, the Dauntless would face severe consequences. Kale heard these talks. He understood the danger he brought to the ship and the people who showed him kindness. He wanted to prove he was not a threat. One of the crew members, Jonas, was different from the others. He was a young engineer who worked in the ship's engine room. Jonas was quiet but kind, and he did not judge Kale by the stories. One day, Jonas found Kale watching the stars from a small observation deck. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Jonas said softly. Kale turned, his golden eyes meeting Jonas's gentle gaze. "Yes, I have never seen so many stars," Jonas smiled. "You'll see more. Space is big, full of places and people." They talked for hours that day. Kale learned about planets, about people who worked together, and about the dreams of the crew. Jonas told Kale stories of Earth, of mountains and oceans, things Kale could only imagine. Kale felt a small hope growing inside him. Maybe in this vast universe he could find a place where he belonged. But not everyone on the Dauntless was as accepting. Some crew members whispered behind his back. Some avoided him in the corridors. Kale heard the fear in their voices, the doubt in their eyes. They called him a monster, a weapon waiting to be unleashed. Kale wanted to prove them wrong. One day, the ship's navigation officer called Kale to the bridge. The crew had detected a dangerous minefield ahead. These mines were old but deadly. Many ships had been lost trying to pass through. The Dauntless had to find a safe path. Kale's senses were sharper than any human's. His Valari heritage gave him abilities the crew could only dream of. He could sense subtle changes in the ship's instruments, feel vibrations too small for others to notice. Captain Chen looked at Kale, her eyes full of trust. "Cale, can you help us?" Cale nodded. "I will try." Together, Cale and the navigation officer studied the data. Cale closed his eyes and focused. He imagined moving through the mines, feeling the space between each one. Slowly, he began to guide the crew, suggesting routes and warnings. The Dauntless moved carefully, following Cale's directions. The crew held their breath as the ship slipped between the deadly mines. Finally, they cleared the field without a scratch. The crew cheered. For the first time, many saw Cale not as a threat but as a protector. But the danger was not over. News from the Concord arrived. They sent a warning that the Dauntless must hand over Cale or face severe punishment. The ship could be barred from trade routes and the crew could lose their jobs or worse. Captain Chen stood tall. "We will not give up Cale. He is part of this crew now. We protect each other." Some crew members nodded in agreement. Others looked worried. Kyle knew the risks. He was a burden in some eyes, a symbol of trouble. But Captain Chen's belief gave him strength. Days passed and Cale continued to learn. He helped in the ship's engineering room, using his sharp mind to fix small problems. He learned the names of the crew and began to understand human emotions more clearly. One evening, Jonas invited Cale to join the crew in the mess hall for a meal. It was a small act of friendship, but it meant the world to Cale. The crew gathered, sharing stories and laughter. Cale felt the warmth of belonging for the first time. But Cale also felt the weight of the future. The Conquered would not forget him. They saw him as a threat to their order, a challenge to their old beliefs. Cale looked out at the stars again. He wondered what lay ahead. Would he find acceptance, or would he be hunted forever? For now, he chose to believe in the kindness of the crew and the courage of Captain Chen. Together, they would face whatever came next, because in the vast darkness of space, even a white fox could find light. The Dauntless had been traveling through space for several weeks now. Cal was growing more comfortable with life aboard the ship, but he knew the danger still followed him like a shadow. The Concord's warning was clear. They wanted him captured and returned. The ship docked on a busy space station called Zareth Prime. It was a trading hub where many species gathered to buy and sell goods. The station was noisy and full of light. People and aliens moved in all directions, their voices mixing with the hum of machinery and engines. Kyle stepped out of the airlock and into the busy crowd. His white fur made him easy to spot, and many turned to look. Some whispered behind his back, calling him names from old stories, but others looked at him with curiosity or even kindness. Jonas stayed close by. He had promised to protect Cale and show him the station. "Be careful," he said quietly. "Not everyone here is friendly." Cale nodded. His golden eyes scanned the crowd. He was still learning how to read faces and understand the many languages spoken around him. As they walked, a sudden noise broke the calm. From a dark alley, two figures rushed toward them. They were bounty hunters, tall, armed, and dangerous. They had come to claim the reward the Concord had placed on Cale's head. Cale's heart raced. He had never fought before. The stories he had heard said his kind were born to kill without mercy. But Cale was different. He did not want to fight. Jonas stepped in front of Cale, ready to defend him. Cale looked at the hunters, then at Jonas. His mind worked quickly. Without attacking, Cale moved with speed and skill. He used his sharp senses to spot the hunters' weak points. Instead of hurting them, he disabled their weapons and blocked their path. The hunters stumbled, surprised by Cale's quick moves. Jonas called for help. Soon, station guards arrived and arrested the bounty hunters. The crowd around them cheered. People whispered, "A white fox saved a human." This was a moment that would change everything. News spread quickly across Zareth Prime. Kyle was no longer just a feared creature. He was someone who saved a life without violence. This surprised many and made others question the old stories about the Volari. But not everyone was happy. The Concord's agents were angry. They sent new orders demanding that Cale be handed over immediately. Captain Chen received the message on the Dauntless. Her face was firm. "We will not give up Cale," she said. "He is under our protection." The crew prepared for possible attacks. They knew the Concord might try to force them. Meanwhile, Cale thought about what had happened. He realized that his choices mattered. He could be the creature of fear the stories told, or something new. He chose to be new. Jonas stayed by Cale's side, helping him understand the complicated feelings of trust and friendship. He taught Kale how humans showed care in small ways, like sharing food or a quiet word. The bond between Kale and Jonas grew stronger. They became friends in a way Kale had never known was possible. One evening, the crew gathered to celebrate their narrow escape. The mess hall was full of laughter and music. Kale sat quietly watching. He felt a warmth in his chest he could not explain. Captain Chen came over and sat beside him. "You have changed more than you know," she said softly. "Not just in their eyes, but in your own." Kale nodded. "I want to be more than fear." The captain smiled. "You already are, but danger was closing in." The Concorde's leaders would not rest until Kale was captured. They sent spies to Zareth Prime, watching the Dauntless and its crew. Kale and the crew knew the next days would be the hardest yet. They had to stand together, or they would all fall. Kale looked at the stars from the ship's window. He thought about the long journey ahead. He was no longer alone. He had friends who believed in him. In that moment, Kale understood something very important. Love and trust were not given freely. They were earned, fought for, and protected, and Kale was ready to fight for them. The Dauntless slowly approached Vishal Prime, the political heart of the Concord of Species. The planet was enormous, covered with shining cities and towering spires that stretched toward the sky. From space, it looked like a gem surrounded by swirling clouds. Inside the ship, the mood was tense. The Concord had demanded a hearing. Kale, the White Fox, was to stand trial. The charges were serious. Harboring Kale was seen as breaking the law. The leaders wanted to prove that Kale was a danger to all species. Captain Raya Chen stood on the bridge, her face hard but determined. "This trial will decide more than Kale's fate," she said. "It will decide if we can challenge old fears and stories." Kyle sat quietly in his small room thinking about what lay ahead. He had never been in a place like this before. The idea of a trial was strange. He was not a criminal. He was just trying to live. The Dauntless docked at the massive court station orbiting Vishal Prime. The station was filled with species from all over the galaxy. Some had never seen a white-furred Valari before. Some stared with fear, others with curiosity. The courtroom was a grand chamber with tall windows showing the stars beyond. Leaders of many species sat on high seats dressed in formal robes and uniforms. The air was heavy with silence as the trial began. The prosecution opened the case. They brought forth historians and scientists who spoke about the Valari's violent past. They showed old records and stories that painted Kyle's kind as cold, ruthless warriors who could not feel love or kindness. Kyle listened. He felt the weight of history pressing down on him, but he also felt a fire inside. He wanted to speak. When the judge gave him the chance, Kyle stood. His voice was calm but strong. "I am not my past," Kyle said. "I am not the fear you have of me. I was born in a time long after the wars. I have feelings. I have hope. I have learned kindness." The courtroom was quiet. Many had never heard a Valari speak like this before. Then Jonas stepped forward. He carried a small data device. "I have found something important," he said. "Records from an old Valari ship. They tell a different story." The leaders watched as Jonas played the recorded logs. The voice on the recording was calm and clear. It spoke of peace, of trying to end a great war, and of creating white-furred hybrids to help build bridges between species. "This is the truth," Jonas said. The Valari were not just warriors. They wanted peace. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Some leaders looked surprised. Others looked angry. Captain Chen spoke next. "Kale is not a threat. He is proof that we must judge not by fear or old stories, but by who someone is today." The trial lasted many hours. The defense showed Kale's actions on the Dauntless, how he saved the crew from danger, how he protected Jonas from bounty hunters, how he helped navigate through minefields. Slowly, the tide began to turn. The leaders started to see Kale as more than a legend or a weapon. They saw him as a being with heart and courage. Finally, the judge stood. The silence returned. After hearing all evidence, the judge said, "The court finds Kale free of all charges. He is a citizen of the stars, deserving of protection and respect." The room burst into murmurs. Some leaders nodded in approval. Others looked away in anger. But the decision was clear. Kale felt a rush of relief and joy. He had won not just for himself, but for all who had been judged unfairly. Captain Chen smiled proudly. This is just the beginning, she said. The galaxy is changing. As the Dauntless left the court station, Kyle looked out at the stars. For the first time, he felt truly free. He knew the future would still hold challenges, but he was ready. Because he had found his voice, his family, and a place to call home. The stars stretched endlessly outside the Dauntless, bright and full of promise. Kale stood near the large window on the ship's bridge, watching the endless sky. The trial was over. The conquered had ruled in his favor. For the first time, he felt the warm touch of acceptance. But Kale knew that real change was just beginning. The galaxy was wide, and many still feared the Valari or those who were different. Yet Kale believed in something stronger than fear. He believed in love, courage, and hope. Captain Raya Chen approached him quietly. Her eyes were soft but strong. "How do you feel?" she asked. Kale turned to her and smiled, a small but genuine smile. "I feel like I am ready." The crew had gathered on the bridge, celebrating quietly. They had come to see Kale not as a mystery or a threat, but as a friend and protector. Jonas stood beside Kale, his face bright with happiness. "You did something amazing," he said. "You showed the galaxy that kindness is stronger than fear." Kale nodded. "I want to do more. I want to help others who feel alone or afraid." The Dauntless set course for a distant planet called Alara. It was a place known for welcoming refugees and those seeking a new start. Captain Chen planned to make it a home for Kale and others like him. On the journey, Kale learned more about himself and the crew. He shared stories from the Valari past, both the dark and the bright. The crew listened and asked questions. They wanted to understand. Kale found joy in these moments. He laughed with Jonas, helped repair the ship's systems, and even taught some crew members simple Valari phrases. One night, Kale looked at the stars with Captain Chen. "Do you think they will ever see me as more than a white fox?" he asked quietly. Captain Chen smiled. "They already do. You are more than stories and fears. You are a symbol of change." Kyle felt warmth fill his heart. He knew the path ahead would not always be easy. There would be those who still judged him by his fur and past. But he was not alone. As the Dauntless neared Ilara, the crew prepared for landing. The planet was covered with green forest and clear blue lakes. It was beautiful and full of life. The people of Ilara welcomed them with open arms. They did not care about old stories or fears. They cared about who Kale was now. Kale felt a deep peace as he stepped onto the soft grass. For the first time, he truly felt at home. Captain Chen stood beside him. "This is your new beginning," she said. Kale looked around at the smiling faces and the bright sky. He thought about all he had faced: loneliness, fear, danger, and now, love and friendship. He understood that being loved was not about what others said or believed. It was about the courage to be himself and the willingness to open his heart. The white fox had found love, and he knew he would never be alone again.